Chapter 21. Chance. Chance could not believe how beautiful Merribeth looked as she approached him in the crowd. The dark green color of her dress made her porcelain skin appear even more perfect, and he thanked his lucky stars that the weather was warm enough tonight that a heavy jacket wasn't needed so he could admire her fully. "You look amazing," he said when she reached his side. The lights twinkling above them sent down an almost angelic glow, which only enhanced her beauty, and the soft Christmas music added an additional layer to the picturesque atmosphere surrounding them. Pink spread across her cheeks, but she smiled. "Thank you. You clean up pretty nice yourself." Chance had been delighted when she'd asked to leave work a little early because it had given him the chance to dash home and change as well. He was glad he had chosen the red shirt, and not the green one he'd almost picked, or the three of them might have looked as if they'd coordinated their outfits. "What about me?" Lucas asked, puffing out his little chest. Chance smiled down at him. "You are by far the most handsome boy I see. What do you have there?" Lucas held up the bag with a proud smile. "It's my candy bag. The floats throw candy, and you have to run and pick it up." His smile faded, and a look of puzzlement crossed his face. "Where's your candy bag?" Chance laughed and shook his head. "I don't need much candy, so maybe you'll share some of yours with me? Besides, I'm not as fast a runner as I used to be." His hand touched his injured leg, and he bit back a small sigh of regret. "Is it bothering you?" Merribeth whispered. She knew about the injury, but they hadn't felt that Lucas needed to know. Chance shook his head. It had been aching earlier due to the longer time he'd been spending on it the last few days. But the Tylenol he'd popped at his house seemed to be taking the edge off. He wouldn't have told her even if it had been, though. His injury did not need to ruin their magical night together. He would, however, need to find a new therapist soon. The sound of the fire engine filled the air, and Lucas bounced on his feet. "It's starting!" Electricity crackled in the air as the people crowded closer together. Kids all down the street stood ready in anticipation. Parents and adults clustered behind them, varying looks of awe and pride on their faces. Chance scooted closer to Merribeth and let his fingers brush against her hand. He understood why she'd put off going out with him, but he hoped once this parade was over and their work schedule slowed down slightly, that she would give him another chance. His heart soared when she smiled up at him and laced her fingers through his. "Look, there it is! There it is!" Lucas's excited yell was easy to hear even over the music, but it was drowned out by the sound of the fire truck's horn. The red engine came into view, decked with green ribbons and complete with Santa and Mrs. Claus waving from the top. A fireman leaned out the window and threw candy towards the children. "Be careful," Merribeth hollered as Lucas darted forward to snatch some of the tempting treats. "Look, look!" He held his bag out proudly to them, displaying the 3 pieces he had picked up. "That's great, buddy, but remember to let other kids get some too." Chance leaned closer to her. "I provided a few extra bags for the floats today. There's probably more than enough to go around." In fact, he had actually provided about 10 giant bags of candy, but he could keep that part to himself. She flashed another warm smile up at him and leaned into his side. Chance couldn't be certain, but he thought this might be a little of what heaven was like. After the fire truck came a float for one of the restaurants. It was shaped like a giant teacup and had Christmas trees drawn all over it. People from inside the cup popped up and tossed candy out before disappearing again. Then there was a giant envelope representing the post office. A mound with a skier atop it representing one of the ski rental shops, and a float with a beautiful Christmas morning scene representing the year-round Christmas store. Chance wasn't sure what he was having more fun watching, the floats, Lucas reacting to the floats, or Merribeth reacting to Lucas's reactions. He could see Christmases like this filling their future, and the thought warmed him to his toes. What could be better than this? In an instant, that warm feeling disappeared. As the float for the local pet store approached, Lucas ran out to pet one of the puppies that was proudly leading the way. Before he reached the dog, though, a figure clad all in black scooped him up and hurried away from Chance and Merribeth. Lucas's scream disappeared among the cheers and Christmas music, but Chance took off after the figure. As he heard Merribeth screaming out behind him, he cursed his injured leg. Had he been in tip-top shape, he would have caught the man easily. But even with the Tylenol masking most of the pain, he was losing ground. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out the walkie-talkies he had insisted on purchasing for tonight. He'd kept one and given the other to Dougie, hoping he wouldn't have to use them. Now it appeared he might need to invest in more and additional security, at least for big events like these. He punched the button and spoke quickly into the intercom. "Dougie, there's a man in black running toward the beginning of the parade route. He's got Lucas." Chance lifted the button and waited for Dougie's reply. His leg throbbed in protest, but he quickened his pace to keep the man in sight. "Got it, boss. I'm heading there now from Main Street." Chance wasn't sure what part of Main Street Dougie was on, but he hoped it would be close enough to cut the man off. There was no way he was letting the man get away with Lucas. "Help! Help me!" Lucas's scream, though loud, was still nearly drowned out by the music in the crowd. It did grab the attention of a few people nearest, but unfortunately not in time to grab the man. Instead, they just became obstacles for Chance to dodge. "Excuse me, pardon me, sorry," he called as he pushed through the crowd. He hoped he wasn't knocking anyone down, but he would take a bruise or even a broken bone over a kidnapping. The man slowed as he hit a bottleneck, and Chance took the opportunity to push himself even further. "Lucas, I'm coming!" Lucas's fearful eyes locked on him, and he held out his hand as if trying to rescue Chance instead of the other way around. Chance wished he had spoken with Lucas, taught him a few skills to help get away in case anything like this happened. Then, as if he caught Chance's thought, Lucas suddenly drew his hand back and jabbed his finger into the man's eye. The man let out a yelp and dropped Lucas as he brought his hand to his eye. A guttural scream escaped from Chance's mouth as he saw Lucas fall to the concrete and lay still. A moment of indecision gripped him. Did he stop to make sure Lucas was okay, or did he get the man responsible for kidnapping him? Thankfully, he was saved from having to make the decision. Just as he reached Lucas, he saw Dougie step in front of the man clad in black. In seconds, Dougie had the man on the ground and his arms pinned behind him. Chance dropped to the ground beside Lucas. "Please be okay." The words were barely more than a whispered prayer as he turned Lucas over. Angry red scratches covered his face from where the asphalt had connected with delicate skin, but Chance saw the rise and fall of his chest. He was alive. That was all that mattered at this moment. Knowing he shouldn't move Lucas any more until he was checked out, Chance pulled out his phone to call 911. Merribeth had probably already called, but another call wouldn't hurt. Chance managed to punch the 9, but before his finger hit the first 1, pain exploded in his head. Stars filled his vision, and the world went black.